One of the most important issues that we're going to be talking about and working on this issue is the Save Women's Sports issue. As a matter of fact, there's a hearing going on today, and later today we will be testifying in favor of Senate Bill 15, the Save Women's Sports Law. But on the House side, the leader of that effort is our good friend, State Representative Valoree Swanson.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to everybody. We're getting more and more state representatives up here. Do you want me to introduce them, or are you going to do it? Okay, he'll do it later. And I just want to thank you for coming, because I know the difference the grassroots make. And I grew up in the grassroots literally from the time I was a child, and only when I became a state representative did I really see and understand the difference that the grassroots make. And especially when we're trying to pass a difficult bill, which according to my staff, that's kind of all I ever file. But it is so important in bringing attention to controversial issues where we really need to save our culture, save our state, and the morality of this country. And in this case, we have to save the rights and the privacy, the safety of our young female athletes. And amen. So last session, actually, Jonathan Saenz came to me and said, hey, would you please carry the bill to stop biological males from claiming to be female and then unfairly competing and winning in women's sports? And I appreciate that. I jumped all in and began to really research and to gather the support. And Texas Values was there with rallies and people coming to testify. And at the time when I first started getting co-authors, there were people saying, like, what is this? What does your bill do? Like, does this really happen? And it took all of regular session and 3 special sessions to actually raise the awareness, grassroots coming over and over, but we did it, and we got it passed to protect the 7th through 12th grade, and that was a huge victory. And I just want to thank all of y'all. Please give yourselves a hand. And when Texas did that, even though we were not able to get through the part last time to protect our college girls, we started the momentum. We kept it going. And now 19 states have actually passed laws to stop biological males from ruining our girls' sports. So this time we have come back to finish the job and to save our college girls, our women. So we're calling this the Save Women's Sports. Last time was Save Girls Sports. We're on to Save Women, and we're going to get it done. Last time it was very concerning because it's like we knew that the women, young women who were suffering were still on the teams, and they were being threatened by their schools, and you'll hear more about that. And we needed women who had suffered in all of this to step up and take a lead on this, and you'll be hearing from Riley Gaines, but I just really want to recognize her and ask you to give her a hand. And thank you to everyone who is stepping up to stop the gender modification and the drag queens and everything involved in this horrendous, just, I don't even know what to call it. Like, who would have thought we needed bills like this in the past? So I just want to thank all of you for being here. And this is what it took last time to save the girls. And this is what it's going to take this time to save women's sports. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Swanson. What a wonderful opportunity today to have such a special guest, our next speaker. Earlier this morning, we had an incredible opportunity to walk from the Capitol over to the governor's mansion because Governor Abbott invited a very special guest to come over and meet with him. Why? Because Governor Abbott is a supporter of Save Women's Sports. But we all know that the work in the legislature matters so much when you hear from someone who has a personal testimony on an issue where they're being impacted on this. I want you to hear from her. She hardly needs an introduction if you've been following some of this issue, but Riley Gaines is an NCAA winning swimming champion. She's competed at the highest level. She qualified for the Olympic trials and went against the best of the best in the country. And then she was forced to race against a man in the women's division. And that person is from right here in the state of Texas. So there is a Texas connection without a doubt. And that's one of the many reasons why she is here. Please welcome Riley Gaines.
Thank you, guys. I love the signs. Of course, there's so many great signs, but I love those Save Women's Sports signs. But I just wanted to thank Jonathan and really thank Texas Values and thank all of you guys for being here. It's really, really important. The past year I've really been outspoken on this, but this right here, people are opening their eyes. People are becoming more bold. They're seeing the spiritual warfare to which our culture is under. And so I just thank you guys so much for being here. It makes doing what I do a lot easier. I know I have so much support. But as he said, my name is Riley Gaines. I just recently graduated from the University of Kentucky, where I was on the swim team. But I wanted to give you a little background on myself. I started swimming at the age of 4, and of course, all the way through until I was 22, so I dedicated 18 years of my life to my sport. And not really just my sport, you dedicate to your diet and your sleep and your physical rehabilitation. There's so much that goes into being successful at the elite level, and it's a lifelong journey. It's impossible to put into words the time and the sacrifices that you make to do so. But competed all the way through, of course, middle school, high school, and I eventually was very fortunate enough to receive a scholarship anywhere essentially in the country that I wanted to go. And so I chose the University of Kentucky, and I had the most phenomenal experience. My sophomore year, well, my college experience was nothing abnormal, first of all. We dealt with COVID, as I know you guys are fully aware of the implications, but my sophomore year, trained all year to compete. Our NCAA championships were in March. Of course, COVID took the world by storm in March, and so we all got sent home a few days before we were supposed to leave for our national championships, and so it felt like we had worked all year for nothing. And swimming isn't a sport you get sent home. You never get time off. We're in the water 6 hours every single day, and so when we got sent home, of course, no pools were open, no gyms were open. I'm fortunate that I'm from Tennessee, so we have lakes that were open. And so I put on a wetsuit every day and swam miles aimlessly, trying to continue getting better. And that's just to kind of highlight what we, and this is not unique to just myself, what we as elite athletes were willing to do to continue getting better. And so we eventually were able to come back to school, and I had made it my goal to win a national title, which was something I knew I was capable of doing. I was in a really good position to do so. About November of my senior year, so 2021, I looked as if I was going to get my chance. I was ranked 3rd in the country behind one amazing female athlete who I, of course, was very familiar with because, like in most sports, your top-tier athletes know each other, regardless of where you compete in the country. You've grown up competing against each other, so you know each other. But the person who was ranked 1st, I had never heard of before. And of course, this is the first time that I became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. But for all I knew at this time, this was a female who came out of nowhere. There's a couple red flags, one of which being this was a senior, and I'd never heard of Leah. 2, this was a swimmer from University of Pennsylvania, which is not typically a school who historically produces fast swimmers. And 3, this was a swimmer who was ranked, if not first, near the top, in the top 5 in everything from the 100 freestyle, which is of course a sprint, all the way until the mile. And so think of this as your runners. Your best 200-meter runner is not your best marathon runner, but that's what we were seeing in the case of Leah Thomas. And so there was a lot of red flags, but never once did it occur to me that this could be a biological male. I thought that was so far-fetched. And so I realized that I was wrong in my assumption of thinking that was far-fetched when a few days after these nation-leading times were posted, times that we're leading the nation by seconds, I want to add. And swimming is a sport that's measured down to the 100th of a second. And so a few days after these times were posted, an article was posted disclosing that Leah Thomas was in fact formerly Will Thomas, right here from Texas, who swam 3 years on the men's team at UPenn before deciding to become a woman and swim for the women's team. And so when I heard this, I of course was baffled by this, but truthfully I felt honestly relieved because I was able to look up who Will Thomas was. And upon looking up who Will Thomas was, I see this was a male who was at best in the men's category ranked 462nd. And so I thought the NCAA would see this for exactly what it was. Nothing opinionated about it, the sheer facts of it. This was someone who was ranked 462nd, the next year leading the nation in the women's category. But that is not how the NCAA saw it. They, of course, saw nothing wrong with this. About 3 weeks before our national championships, the NCAA announced that Leah Thomas would, in fact, be competing with the women. And so I know it's impossible to speak for every single person who's on that pool deck, but I can wholeheartedly attest to the tears that I saw from the 9th and 17th place finishers who missed out on being named an All-American by 1 place. And I can wholeheartedly attest to the extreme discomfort in the locker room when you turn around and there's a 6'4" biological male, fully intact with male parts, watching you and your teammates undress. And I can wholeheartedly attest to the grumbles of anger and frustration from these girls who had worked so hard, just like myself, worked their entire lives to get to this moment. And so that first day of competition, I sat on the side of the pool deck and watched as Leah Thomas, again, swam to a national title, beating out 3 U.S. Olympians, American record holders, the most impressive female swimmers in American history by, again, body lengths, seconds. That second day was the day that Thomas and I competed against each other in the 200 freestyle. Almost impossibly enough, in which now, being in this position, seeing how my life plans were totally rerouted. I was supposed to be in dental school this year, but I've kind of put that off. I see how God has put me in this position. But almost impossibly enough, we tied, Leah Thomas and myself. We went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. I believe our time was 1 minute, 43 seconds, and 52 100ths or something like that. And so, thank you. And so upon tying, we go behind the awards podium where the NCAA official looks at both of us and says, "Great job. You know, you guys tied. We have 1 trophy, so the trophy goes to Leah." And so I look at this official and I say, "Okay, you know, I understand we tied. I understand there's 1 trophy, but why are you adamant on giving this trophy to a biological male in a woman's race?" And he said, "Well, Leah has to hold the trophy for photo purposes. You can pose with this one, but you give it back. You go home empty-handed. Leah takes the trophy." And so that is what thrusted me into this position. Of course, I knew what was happening was wrong in terms of the unfair competition, in terms of losing the ability to consent in areas of undressing in front of biological men and being exposed to biological men. I knew that was wrong, but when the NCAA reduced everything that I had worked, again, my entire life for, they reduced that down to a photo op to validate the identity and the feelings of a male, that's when I had had enough. That's when I was done waiting for someone else to stick up for us, because truly I was waiting for a coach or a parent or someone within the NCAA, someone who was supposed to be protecting us, to protect us. But then it hit me, if we as female athletes aren't willing to stick up for ourselves, how can we expect someone else to stick up for us? And so I stand here before you guys, and I know I'm speaking for so many more than just myself. Being in this position, I have people all of the time reach out to me and say, you know, thank you for what you're doing. I'm a parent, I work a corporate job, I can't use my voice, but I appreciate you. Or I'll have athletes who say, you know, I can't speak up, but I appreciate what you're doing, please keep fighting. Which, truthfully, that's a bigger problem than the whole fairness in women's sports issue. When we lose the freedom of our own speech, when we have large institutions and universities suppressing our voices because they don't want to hear our side of our argument, that's really scary. of course, America is a country that was founded on the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, so many amazing things that make America so great. And we are forfeiting that, which is far scarier, far more threatening than fairness in women's sports. And I see that now. And so I wanted to tell you guys kind of what these universities are doing, how the NCAA is handling this. I talked to several of Leah Thomas's teammates at really great lengths, and including their parents. They've informed me of what their school has done. They were forced to go to mandatory LGBTQ meetings every week to educate themselves on the oppression that Leah faces. They were told that they are not allowed to use their voice because their school has already made their stance for them. They were told that they will not get a job, that they will not get into grad school, that they will lose their scholarship and their playing time if they speak out. When the girls were concerned about undressing in front of a male, and they sent an email to their university, the university, and I swear I have a screenshot of it, you can't even make this up, their university responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, here are some counseling resources that you should seek. So these girls, again, in my same position, my story, my experience, it is not unique. These girls sharing my same experience are terrified into using their voice. So while we might seem like the silent minority, we are the overwhelming majority. The overwhelming majority. Absolutely. I'll wrap up. We are denying objective truth. That's what's happening. And it's, again, far beyond sports. We're denying objective truth, and that's, like I said, it's really scary. It almost feels as if we're living in a George Orwell dystopian novel where they're trying to make us say 2 + 2 is 5. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm not a biologist. We have a sitting Supreme Court justice who claims she can't say what a woman is because she is not a biologist. But guess what? Neither am I, neither are you guys. We know what a woman is. We know why God put us on this planet. And so my call to action to you guys is to continue being bold, continue using your voice, continue being present. It is so, so needed and so important. And so I thank you guys. I have to run to testify on Senate Bill 15 where, like Valoree said, we'll be protecting women. And I want to thank Senator Mays Middleton who's putting this forward, and of course Valoree and Jonathan and Governor Abbott, really amazing people in this state. So thank you guys for being here.
All right. Don't leave yet, Riley. Okay? All right, we have something special for her. They didn't give her a trophy, but we have a trophy for the real winner of that race. We know what a woman is, and we know who the real winner was.
Thank you. This actually kind of looks like the NCAA trophy, so thank you. Thank you.
All right, let me make sure your voices are warmed up. Let me hear you. Save women's sports! 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 There you go, good job. Okay, he has been graciously waiting, thank you. One of the reasons why we have an opportunity to pass Senate Bill 15 in the House version and to have a law in place that protects and save women's sports is because we have one of the most courageous leaders in the country leading our Texas Senate. Please welcome to the podium and the mic our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick.
I want you to stay because today we are hearing the bill in State Affairs, in the Senate, and we will pass out this bill to save women's sports in college. We will get it done.